February was an interesting month. Hello everyone, welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris, and today's video is the February reading wrap-up slash check-in on the low by year, which, spoiler alert, I have gone over budget at this point, and also to check what books that I bought or received in the month, which I now realize are nowhere near me, and I have to get up to go and get them. So, what I will do first is I will talk about the budget, which is going to jump straight into it in the essence of time. This is also going to come out late, so you'll be getting this one a day later than you normally do. Sorry about that. So in February, I spent a total of $524 on book or book-related things. My goal for the entirety of 2024 to 2025 financial year was $1,000, and I currently am sitting at 1,254. So I actually bought two bookshelves. One you can see behind me in this middle section here, and also one next to me, which holds a bunch of paperbacks. You can go and check my bookshelf tour out if you so choose to, but that put a pretty big dent in it. And I also had a Kickstarter come in, so I count them when I can show them off. So I'll show that book off, and that was $100, and also a second book from the Broken Binding to keep up with the series, and that was another $80. So those tend to be a little bit more expensive than some of the other things that I purchased. But yes, I've already bought 3 things in the month of March, but they one was an Audible credit, and then 2 discounted audiobooks. So we'll see. We'll see how we go for the year. I'm just going to focus on still being quite conscious of the money that I'm spending, and like I have $6 in my bank account right now, so I can't really go too hard on those books. $6 is 2 discounted audiobooks. Anyway, it really puts it into perspective when you are watching your money so closely as to where your priorities lie. And for me, that always has been and very likely always will be books and written media in that sort of format. So yeah, just interesting that is where that money and that priority has gone. Is just the other goals that I had for here, which were clothing, alcohol, gamings, and things like that. Really, I haven't touched it. I'm so under budget in those, which is great because like all the money that I have has been going into books, which I guess isn't a bad problem to have. So with that out of the way, let's have a look at a quick book haul that I got, which is all physical, I believe, for the month of February. The first thing that I'll show off is the Troy game by Sarah Douglas, because this is a completed series. So I have 8 books to show off today, but 4 of them are one series. I got this for $50 off eBay, and I have shown this on my most recent reading vlog. So there's Hades' Daughter, book 1, God's Concubine, book number 2, Dark Witch Rising, book number 3, and also Druid's Sword, book number 4. I very likely will pick this up and reread at some point this year because I am feeling a call to it, which is why I bought it. I've been looking for these for a very long time, and managed to get all 4 of them in the same paperback. So you can generally find the first 3, but not the 4th one that I found in the paperbacks. You can get the hardcovers, but I believe they're either out of print or then I don't know. But they're quite hard to get in the same format. So I was glad that I found those. And then I went to book shopping, so we took Rachel out for her birthday, which is in early February, and there happened to be a bookshop like on the street we were on. So I said, "Oh, it'd be rude not to just walk in there." And like my little family unit knows me by now; they know as soon as there's a bookshop that I'm going in there. So we went in, and I picked up A Language of Dragons by S.F. Williamson. I don't know very much about this, but I read the synopsis on the back, and it seems like historical sort of fantasy, maybe a cozy vibe, but not too cozy for my personal tastes. And the cover is just gorgeous, just beautiful with that foiling as well. So I picked that one up. That was about $20, and I picked up The Black Hunger by Nicholas Pullen, which was I want to say a priority read for me. I read this on an Orbit list last year, and I was like, yes, I want to read that, and I just never bought it, and it was there when I went to pick it up. So it came home with me while I was at the bookshop. The series continuation that I got from the Broken Binding, this is Dance of Shadows by Gaurav Mohanty. So I will be picking up Sons of Darkness at some point, hopefully this year. I'm really just letting mood reading take me where it wants to take me at the moment because I have so many, I don't like calling them obligation reads, but reads that I'm doing for other people. So this is beautiful. I'm really like I'm craving a bit of Indian mythology fantasy, and like this is dark fantasy, grimdark Indian mythology. Like I'm into it, but I just haven't picked it up yet. So I did pick up that one, and whenever the next book drops, I will very likely fork out the money for that as well. And then I got a Kickstarter by Kate and Love. This is book two, Duet of Pernicious Eels, and I had a really good time with this one. If you like religion being spoken about in a very candid way, regardless of where you align religiously, then I think you'll have a good time with this one. Also, the Zatlog, this bat goat thing, really cool. Very cool on the page, very cool in the book. So those are the books that I purchased over the month of February. Jumping into my reads themselves, so for the wrap up portion of this, I will split this into two sections. The first will be beta reads, which I did four in the month of February, and I can talk very loosely about them. One is I re released and that I reread, and I've both alpha and beta read that one, which is A Line Unsundered by Ricky Smith. So I read this, I think, my first year, either on Bookstagram or on Booktube. I don't know if there's a review for it. It was very early on in my foray into book internet, and I liked it. I had some criticisms where I thought that it needed to be longer, and the criticisms that I had, Ricky's gone and done for a re-release, which I believe is coming out later this year, and I had a blast with it. It is so good, and it's been polished to a point where I think people will pick this up and hopefully have a 5-star read, because I'm at that point where I'm like, this is great, and I need to know more about this story. I'm now invested in what's happening here. I don't have the new cover, I don't think. I'll check before I put this video up if it's been released, because if it hasn't, I won't put it up there, but just know that it may be coming out this year, and I had a really good time with it. The next one I am allowed to talk about, and we have had a cover release for it. This is The Swamp by Palmer Pickering. This is book 2 in the Tales of Temerity series, which is a lit RPG where we're following Temerity and co. as they walk through or wade through and try and get out alive of the swamp. This is a lot of fun. This series is part bloody, part cozy, all the fun, which is the tagline of it. I feel that Temerity really grew up in this one, and we get to see a lot more of her decision-making skills. We're just going to wait for Valerie to sit down. Hopefully she'll get there eventually. There you go. Good girl. And the team that she's with really had to work together and learn that dynamic. And as always, like with the first book, there is such imagery here. The leveling up system is easy to follow. You've got some real moments of character progression in here. And like I said, learning to work with that dynamic. Great banter, great side characters. And you just need to read it, and then someone needs to talk to me about sparkles, because still like one of my favorite things that's ever happened in a lit RPG book. So there's that. That's all I'm going to leave you with for that one. Then I read a book called Die Slow. This is by Morgan Shank, and is the follow-up to Die Young. And I won't give too much away with this one, but I am so proud of this author and just how far they have come since I beta read the first book, Die Young. This book is quite clean at alpha stages, which is not always the case. So this was an alpha read for Morgan, which I think beta, alpha or beta. Either way, I had a lot of commentary on the first book that he asked if I would be willing to read the second book because of that commentary, and I'm so happy for him, and I can see the growth that this author has had, and this is one of the reasons that I love beta reading. So my favorite type of reading is actually alpha and beta reading, more so than just reading for fun, because I get to have that connection and see the progression of what happens with these stories. And the last one I have here is called Miss Home, and this is by Shelby Matheson, this was a YA novel, and it was really cute. So if you like school settings, you like sort of coming of age and discovery of yourself, this was very, very cute. And High Magic as well. Had a great time with it. We had conversations around trans people as well. So there's a trans female character in this book, and that was done really respectfully. So I also sensitivity read that one, and I had a great time. So all of those beta reads were very, very positive experiences for me, and yeah, just had a good time with those. I then had 6 reads of my own, which I didn't expect to read so much, just sort of on my own time. I am finding, and maybe this is leading into why I've been such a mood reader this year, is that with the beta and alpha reads that are taking up my brain space, I am just letting myself be free to pick whatever I want, which means that some of those arcs and review copies are being pushed by the wayside, unfortunately, but I don't want to do those a disservice because I'm reading other things, and that's taking that brain space. So I just sort of let myself go. I had one review copy, one arc, and then a few things in here that I just read for fun. So I will go with I finished the Wolf Den trilogy by Elodie Harper. So I listened to book 2, The House with the Golden Door, and book 3, The Temple of Fortuna, this month. Audiobooks were fantastic. This is a historical fiction. It has nothing to do with fantasy, and we are following Amara, who is a prostitute who is working in Pompeii. And at the end of, actually, I won't give spoilers away for the end of the first book, but we're essentially following this woman's very, very hard life and some of the very difficult decisions that she has to make to survive. It is very much a character study and survival story of this woman, and it is written so beautifully. And it's not a. So I love a purple prose. I like quite poetic prose when it comes to historical fiction, and historical fantasy is my preferred when I go into that sort of subgenre and genre. And Elodie Harper has solidified, herself as an auto by author for me. There is a book coming out, I believe, in September, which may be a follow-on, and it's called Boudica's Daughter. And there was something that happened at the end of the third book where I was like, hang on a minute. Is Boudica's Daughter going to be another series within this universe? Because I'm in, if that is the case. But those two are really lovely. I can't go too much into detail just because they are series continuations. But if you like fantasy, if you're a fantasy reader and you like those character studies where really sit with how someone is feeling and you want to dabble in historical fiction, this is a really good one to dip your toes into the water. I also read The Legend of Us. This was the review copy. This is by Aaron N. Hall. I'll put this up here. Super fun. We are following Sir Dashing Jr., so DJ, as he goes on a quest to prove that he is worth the knighthood that he's been given. So this town, they don't think very much of the son, but they love his father. And they can't knight his father twice, so they decide to honor this guy again by knighting his son. And then Sir Dashing Jr. goes, well, I need to go and earn that. And we just have like a motley crew of adventure. It had some like crude humor in there, but wasn't overdone. It was quite witty. It was very sort of like tongue in cheek, but not to the point where I didn't like it, because I don't love humor in books or an overuse of humor in books, but I can absolutely see kids loving this. And I messaged the author after I'd read it, and I said, this let me have a childhood that I didn't get to experience. And I remember talking to Abel Montero, and I'll have his channel linked down below, a little while ago, about a book that did that for him, and I didn't really understand it until I read The Legend of Ah, and I was like, I would have absolutely eaten this up as a young lad and just wanted to go on these adventures and be with, this motley crew, learning about friendship, learning about self-acceptance, and had a good time. So if you don't mind a younger read and you're looking for just sort of a fun adventure, I would give this one a go. Just know that they are going to try and find there's like some prophesized brazier, like that's the kind of humor that you get in there. So if that's not your thing, maybe don't go down that route. But if that sort of doesn't bother you, then it was pretty funny for me. But that just could be because I am a dude. I don't know. The immaturity scale potentially there, but I had a good time with it. I then picked up, apparently there were complaints by Sharon Gless. So this is a memoir. This is a non-fiction, and this is a woman who I admire very much. Now, I came across Sharon Gless in Queer as Folk. It was my queer awakening, that I was, attracted to men, and I was interested in that sort of scene, and like that will always hold a solid place in my heart. In that series, she plays a P-flag mum of one of the men who are in there. Um, Michael Navani is his name in the story, but you might know her from things like Cagney and Lacey, which was in the 80s as sort of her big break into the industry. This is a very candid look at 5 decades in Hollywood, and just the showcases the character that Sharon is on and off the screen, and talks about some hard-hitting topics here. So I really had a great time with this book. I love reading memoirs where you get a bit of an insight into someone who's lived quite a colorful life. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time with that one. I then read The Sorceress in Exile by D.H. Hoskins. This is the follow-up to the Council of Thesia. Solidifying this series is potentially one of my favorite political fantasy series that I've read to date. This sort of takes a concept of what happens after the end of the world. What happened? How do we rebuild from this? Rather than the whole build up to it and having that be the conclusion. It's this event has happened. Now what? And then we have some machinations and things that happen in the first book, and we carry on a few months after with this sequel. What this does really well is it also plays with this concept of, I guess, middle book syndrome in a trilogy, where it really delves into the world and the characters, and we get a lot more nuance around the big bad called the Osmomancer in this particular book. We have new species come in, we get to see a little bit deeper of that. So I'm trying not to give too much away here, but magic gets banned, and They want to go and see this book of history or this book of magic or book of order, I believe it's called, to try and do something with that. And then we sort of go on that journey, and it just like all is not as it seems. So that was kind of interesting as well. I really like these characters, like Venefica. I probably pronounced that terribly. One of my favorite characters that I've read in like modern fantasy. Norvina, really good main character as well, and I quite like the monks. So we have a group of monks and one particular monk that goes with them um, in this series, and I just had a great time with it. And the last one that I'll talk about today is Butter. This is by Asako Yuzuki. I can't go too much into this one because I will be doing a discussion with Ryan over at Genre Blender at some point. This is a contemporary. It is a based on a true story of the Konkatsu killer, which the story follows this woman who is in prison for being a serial killer, but she's like a food blogger. And then we have another woman who is a journalist who sort of, I guess, I would argue, goes down the road of obsession with this particular killer and follows things that the killer had done, like going to her cooking school, trying to get inside her head to get an exclusive deal on this story. But the killer tells her that she needs to do certain things to do that. Inside of this book, so we're dealing with quite heavy thematics, which I would argue a lot of Japanese fiction or translated works do. We are looking at misogyny and feminism, and also just the way that people view themselves in a Japanese society, which I thought was quite interesting. My favorite part of Butter is that we have very in your face themes. So, misogyny is absolutely at the forefront of this. We are looking at a society who views women in a very particular way, very patriarchal society, and people telling women what they think they can and cannot do. But underneath that, we have the same theme at a much more subtle level. So, even though that was there in your face, we also had this theme of male female friendships being able to be friends and not be a romantic attraction, and acceptance within those male friendships. And I guess this idea that friends will sometimes say things to you which conform to societal norms, and it can be hurtful to that person to say that you're not accepting me. You want me to fit into this box because society wants me to fit into this box. But how do you view me? And we got this underlying unpacking of that. And one of the characters that goes through this eventually says, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was doing that. And yes, I was just trying to put you in the societal box because that was more comfortable for me. And I didn't realize I didn't let you be yourself. So I had a good time with this one for the conversations that were in it. Not my favorite read, probably sits at about a 3.5 star in the grand scheme of things. But I do love the way that I've found, particularly with Japanese works, is they take mundane topics and they really put deep thematics into them to turn on its head and make the reader think. And this absolutely happened for me in Butter. So, all in all, that was a pretty decent reading month. Don't expect that every month. In the month of March, we are halfway through. I have not read nearly that many things. I am working on alpha reads, but we'll see how we go there. That was all the reads for the month. If you like the content, give one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will. I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao.